Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We have today the second post from Yossi Golan, and we are going to get to it right now. Okay, guys, as you remember, Yossi Golan is doing working with land in the US, and today post is about acquisition of land in the USA. So you can see a map here of land, and let's jump right into it because there's a lot of things that Yossi want to tell us today. It's a long post. All right, so you decided you were tired of flipping, and what is the reason? Murphy. I guess what Yossi Golan means here that probably some people had bad luck, like Murphy was in the wrong place, wrong time, the Murphy law. All right, actually Yossi says here, Murphy visited you a little more than you thought. Right, so you didn't expect how much work you're going to have. You ripped off the wall and you saw that the electric is not as you thought, the plumbing, etc. All right. The wall that you decided to remove during the renovation in order to open up the space in the center of the house actually concentrated all the electricity and air conditioning infrastructure inside. So basically it's saying you thought when you looked at the property, you said, all right, I'm going to remove this wall and we're going to open the space for the kitchen. But then you found out that this wall have all of the electricity, so there's much more work to be done. And so they evaporated a few $1,000s more, and a good reason for the subcontractors to explain why they are not on time. And Excel is already starting to wave a red flag. And so in every project, new surprises like mushrooms come up after the rain. And most of them, how to say gently, not really for the better. So you have decided that's it. You are going on new construction projects. And you started looking for land. Wonderful. And you even found land. Overpowering. Have you checked comps as written in the books? Excellent. Have you analyzed the prices of houses in the neighborhood? Stunning. But now let's start checking out what's really about to be purchased. The land. But what do you check? At the flips, we sent contractors for an estimate of the cost of renovation. We sent an inspector to check foundations, roof, windows, air conditioner, electricity, water, compliance with required codes, mold, etc. But in the case of land, there is nothing of everything we're used to be checking. It's land. It's just land. Yossi is absolutely right. We are used to checking houses, so we're checking the roof, we're checking the AC, the heating. What do you check in land? That's a great example. So what is being checked here anyway? You start to realize that the test is a little different, actually, much different. You need to sign a purchase contract, but this is land. Is it even necessary to include a review period in the contract, due diligence? You know that when you buy a house, you have 5, 10, 15 days of due diligence period for inspection period. Do you have that with the land? Let's see. So the answer, of course, yes. What exactly is being examined in this period? Great question. To facilitate the process, I have prepared a checklist of 24 issues that need to be examined, and I have even added the terms in English in important places so that the other side will understand the issue accurately. The answers will help you answer the question, is it even possible to build on this land? And as far as construction, is it possible and is it economical and profitable to build on this land? So let's start. All right, so first of all, is the land buildable? This is the first question, and even though it sounds silly, this is the most important question. The land may not be buildable at all. In such a case, it is necessary to understand what the costs are for turning it into a construction bar, and what is the length of time required for this? Number 2, is the area developed? Underdeveloped space will incur many expenses and a long period of time, both in issuing permits and in preparing the land. It is important to examine all of the costs of preparing the land until it is ready for construction. It is also advised to test using a proposal from several contractors to prepare the land for construction, up to pad ready, and calculate on your own once you have developed capabilities for this. Land development costs can turn a good deal into a hole into your pocket. So basically what Yossi is saying here, when you get the land, get a few proposals from contractors to see if it's ready for building, because later on, let's say you bought the land and it's not, you will have a lot of expenses to get it ready. Number 3, existence of infrastructure. Are the required infrastructures in the area, including gas, sewage, water, and electricity, are ready? If the infrastructure is not available, the costs involved must be taken into account, as well as the process with the various supply companies, which means time and budget. So basically, if the land is not ready for utilities, gas, sewage, water, etc., and you will need to do it yourself later on, that's going to be very expensive and very time consuming. So number 4, infrastructure constraints. Check above and below the surface. Are you moving or are planning to move infrastructure that will impair your ability to build a house as you wish? If at all, you are allowed to carry out construction. Number 5, is there an infrastructure filler in the area? It can cost up to $15,000. Number 6, sewage infrastructure type. So are we talking about sewer that is connected to the city, or is it a septic tank? Septic tank have its own cost, and it's also might drive some kind of customer away later on when you build a house, because some customers doesn't want to have a septic tank. Whoever doesn't know what is a septic tank, some remote locations are not connected to the sewer system of the city. So you have like a tank besides your house that is being filled with everything going on from the toilet, and every once in a while you need to bring a company to clean it up. The septic might overflow, so not all of the customers want to deal with it. All right, a substantive question. We will return to it again at the end of the post. If the infrastructure is sewer, there is a set of issues to examine. For example, is it necessary to install a pump to raise the sewer to road level if the ground is sloping? If the septic infrastructure, the most important question, does the soil allow liquids to be observed? So we know some areas in Florida, for example, Tampa, you have certain kind of soil that some of it actually observe too much of the water, and then it can create sinkhole. We already discussed about sinkholes here, but you might have a different kind of soil that doesn't observe the water, and then you're actually going to have flooding. We see flooding in all kind of areas, Miami and other locations where the water is not being observed in the ground. So that's why you need to make sure, there are a lot of ponds that are connected to each other that actually reserve all of this water and make it flow between the ponds. So sometimes the soil does not allow for the absorption of liquids, and then construction will simply not be allowed on the soil. The required test is called a PERC test and cost about $500. Topography. Even if the land is developed and all the infrastructure is in place, should preparatory work be done before foundation? Is special development and preparation work required? Here is a case we experienced. About 2 years ago, we considered buying land in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to build a new house in a luxury neighborhood with an amazing view and schools with a score of 10. The price of the land was about $50,000, was definitely reasonable for the area and even 20% cheaper than the market value. In practice, due to a sharp slope in the ground, we were required for significant retaining walls, and the cost of which was estimated at $70,000. This additional cost led to the cancellation of the project and the non-purchase of the land due to the lack of economic viability for the project. So basically, what Yossi tells us here, whoever doesn't know, like the retaining walls, when you have when there is a slope in the ground, you need to retain that ground from drifting down. So you need to build retaining walls, and this can be very costly. And we see in older houses that eventually these retaining walls can move, can break. So if you are buying it not to resell it and to hold it as a rental, this can be additional cost for such a property later on to maintain these retaining walls. So this very clause led to the cancellation of a huge 300-unit subdivision deal in a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. After in the due diligence process, we were able to quantify the additional cost of topography treatment. Number 8, environmental services regulations. For example, granted trees preservation, or an incident that happens to us at a Smith Lake, a huge man-made lake between Birmingham and Huntsville in Alabama, and the shores of which holiday homes are being built, where it was not possible to dig in the ground because of special lizards nest there. So basically, there were lizards nesting in that ground, so it wasn't possible to dig in there. This is crazy. Number 9, zoning test. Land designation and building rights in it. SF, MF, and condos. Single family, multifamily, and condominiums. Number 10, school affiliation. Here too, just as in homes, there is a great importance to the issue if the home is to be sold to a family with children. So, as hopefully most of you know, a lot of the valuation of properties in the US are being based on the school district that that property is belong to. I know where we live in Long Island, you can go one block away to a different school zone, and the prices of the property is going to be half of what we have, and it's all because that the schools in our zone are ranked 9 or 10, and the school in that other zone are ranked 4 or 5, and that can be in a matter of a block. So beware also when you buy a property, you might find a property that is less than half a mile away, but you need to look at the school district of that property. And we're actually teaching that in our analysis course, property analysis course, and you can also order such a report. We have an analysis service that's going to provide you a report for every property that you like to buy, and this is one of the parameters that we are looking into. All right, so number 11, checking building lines, setbacks. So even if you are aware of the distance that the building lines has receded from the boundary of the area, you still need to check. Why? Because two houses are adjacent. They may have different retraction lines due to the date the parcellation was performed. Okay, so basically, you know, there are different regulations per state for the distance between the houses. Some say have 8 feet, some might have a different number. But basically what Yossi says here, that there might be different parcellation dates for different lands, And it might be that the regulation for a land that was parcelized in a certain date, the regulation was X, and now the regulation is Y. So you need to double check that. All right, number 12, checking the area definition for flood zone issue. So, especially if you're buying in, let's say, Florida, which there's a lot of flood zones. Some say that all of Florida is one big flood zone, for example. So it's important, first of all, you need to know how to build. For example, certain areas, let's say in the west coast of Florida, they are building the first floor with bricks, so it can be handling hurricanes and floods. You might want to make sure that you are in an elevated area, that you're not going to have a lot of floods. And if you are in a flood zone, you need to take into consideration that the insurance for a flood zone is more expensive than areas that are not in a flood zone. All right, number 13, verification that the land is not a wetland. Okay, so some areas can be considered a wetland that you're not supposed to build there. You see some communities, again, especially in Florida, that have wet areas, that actually you can see how they structure the lots. So the lots end in a certain area that's going to say this is a wetland. So in the wetland, they are not allowed to build. So you don't want to buy a land that is on a wetland. Checking the right of ways. Number 14. Checking the requirement for parking. Okay, so like if you're building a community that you're bringing a lot of new tenants or buyers, homeowners into the area, they will need to park somewhere. So this is a very important thing to make sure where they're going to park. Soil test. I guess Yossi mean here, the soil might be contaminated. There might have been, it might have been a factory that poured all kind of liquids, contaminated liquids into the ground. So then you will need to treat that soil to clean it, if at all possible. Number 17, impact of fees. Okay. Number 18, relief test, right of use, easements. Number 19, termite inspection. You have a lot of location in the US that have a lot of termites, and that will need to be treated. You will need to create kind of like traps around the property later on for termites, and or to inject something into the ground. This is something they used to do. Some areas in the US that's no longer legal, but you definitely need to look into that. Number 20, land disturbance inspection, an issue that requires consultation with the district offices and may take a long time. Number 21, if there are construction plans, then press submit them initially in the county city to check the feasibility of the construction plans. All right, so check with the city and the county for your plans. 22, relevant authority. Municipal bylaws in a county city may be constrained and have a significant impact on costs. Number 23, taxes. Municipal tax and district tax, yes, even on the ground. 24, HOA neighborhood committee, homeowner association. So if this land going to be as part of an HOA, every HOA have their own regulations that you will need to follow. The neighborhood committee has a lot of power, cost and guidelines. Covenants, restrictions should be considered. The monthly cost to the committee can reach hundreds of dollars. It is worth knowing that held land also requires care and maintenance that accompanies financial expenses. And most importantly, the neighborhood committee as a guidebook and binding in relation to many construction issues, covenants, restrictions. For example, the guidelines may define a minimum house size, first floor plan size, type of cladding, building appearance, house color allowed, location of the entrance to the parking lot from the front, or it should be on the side, and even what the mailbox will look like. It is not possible to build without the approval of the committee. A house in Huntsville, Alabama, for example, after receiving all the permits and just before construction began, was not approved for construction and was rejected by the HOA. Reason for rejection: this house model was built several times in the neighborhood and detracts from the character of the neighborhood. So basically the HOA, they are taking care of, for example, HOA can tell you not to decorate outside of the house in certain days, not to paint your house in certain colors. They are looking to keep the value and the unity of the neighborhood. So, for example, you want to create a certain model for the house. In the US, it's very common that when you work with a contractor, you pick up the lot and then you pick up the model of the house that you like. Okay, so every model have a name, have a size, and there might be that this neighborhood already have 50 duplication of that model, and they want to have some kind of a diversity. So not all of the neighborhood going to look exactly the same. So let's continue. As a result, we were forced to change the interior and exterior design of the house to a completely different model. And to my strong neighborhood, by the way, is not a bad thing. So basically, Yossi said this is not a bad thing to keep the neighborhood unity. The neighborhood will usually be in demand, in good condition, which will lead to an increase in the value of the property and the amount of the rent. So, and the list goes on to dive to more depths and layers. I know this is a long post, but my method is to explore everything in depth and then make the right move. But I will stop here. And now the question arises: who knows how to answer these issues? So it is that there is no a single factor. Information is required to be fused from a large number of parties, from the realtor, the district offices, the development contractor, the construction contractor, the engineer, the architect, and the infrastructure supply companies. So how do you get started? The solution I found for a single piece of land is finding a broker who understands the field. Most of them are not, unfortunately, and can provide some of the answers. Together with it, you will build an action plan who addresses which factor for each and every issue from the list. Note, the labeling list referred mostly to individual land units in developed neighborhoods. However, if the intention is to purchase undeveloped land, develop it ourselves. And to establish a subdivision then requires an additional and extensive set of exam issues, which in itself requires a dedicated post that will not be presented here except for an example. Suppose the desired project outline is the construction of a townhouse of 4 apartments on a land of 20,000 square feet. Suppose we checked in the municipality and the zoning allows the construction of a townhouse in that area. And suppose there is no sewage system in the area and the sewage treatment is in septic configuration. Then we will find out that there is a restriction of the Ministry of Health. The restriction sets a minimum area of 20,000 square feet per housing unit for a system in a septic configuration. So that even though zoning allows the construction of a townhouse, this restriction actually reduces the number of units from 4 to 1. All right, so basically, septic system takes space. So there is a restriction by the Ministry of Health that if you want to have a septic system, you need to have 20,000 square feet. So then you can build less houses. So as Yossi mentioned, this is something that you need to look into. And in fact, completely cancels the original business plan. By the way, we did not talk about insurance. So just for that, I want to mention, it's very common, especially in Israel, because of lack of land, all kind of development of destroying and rebuilding old buildings and rebuilding. So you know that the developers that build a new building, they are calculating how many units they can build because they need to give new apartments to every apartment that was there, and have a ratio, let's say between 1:3 to 1:5. So this is a great example, finding something like that, for example, with land, with the septic system, that suddenly you cannot build as much as you thought that you can build. This changes the entire calculation for your development, so all of that wouldn't make sense anymore. All right, so let's continue with insurance. Some argue that purchasing through an LLC is sufficient in the case of land. I'm personally one of the strictest and the least third-party insurance insurer, just to be on the safe side of the law, or the lot. It's rhymes. So far, US lands. So this is it for today about buying lands in the US, and hope the tagging list helps you in your initial purchase. So what do you think about land in Israel? Do you think Yossi lives in Israel and he is an entrepreneur that buys in the US? As you know, our forum helps a lot of foreign investors that are trying to invest in the US. Do you think the occupation is simpler or more complex? In the next post, we will talk about land in Israel and risk management. Okay, so you can see here land. This says section 2A or level 2B, level C, and this is the current lands. All right, so we have a few more maps here. So basically, this is usually how lot maps in the US looks like. So you can see that, let's say the smaller lots going to have no premium, and the bigger lots, corner lots, going to have a premium. It's going to be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, depends on the location and what kind of lot. If they're going to be, let's say, a lake here, and these lots are going to be right facing the lake, so they're going to be more expensive. So we can see some more examples here of maps. And this is actually a screenshot from Zillow showing you the different prices. You see this lot, which is a corner lot, which is way bigger, and the property is bigger with a pool. So the Zestimate or the asking price is $752,000, and the smaller lots are in the 450s range. Okay, so the lot makes a lot of difference. All right, so let's see some of the responses. Excellent post with a lot of knowledge. Thank you, Golan Yossi. I'm just asking if you get all of the permits required to build on the ground. What does it mean not to do a soil test? Thanks, wonderful, well done. If you can't build, talk to me. Interesting and challenging, excellent post. All right, so another one. Wow, first of all, you are very, very professional, and I take my hat off. Second thing, I'm building houses and I'm pretty scared of the length of this list. I hope others who are thinking of such a way of investing will not be alarmed by all of the things involved. Some of the list is preliminary decision of where to build and what for sure not to do. In my case, does not do septic. Okay, so this user that says that he simply doesn't do septic because of experience I already had with it. does not build in an area that has restriction because it usually micromanages the project. When I was just thinking of starting, then I was also super worried about such long list of things to check. But as long as you build single-family homes within a city and do not develop an entire subdivision out of nothing, then the process is less scary than it seems. All right, so we see people clapping. Excellent post and very interesting. All right, guys, so this is it for today, and we will be with you tomorrow for the next post from Yossi, post number 3. So thank you everyone for joining, and have a great, wonderful day.